A very cheery hello from me to all of you. I'm very sorry, apologies for the delay in the Cheeni stories, but I shifted cities and there was a lot of packing, unpacking, arranging, rearranging stuff to do. Don't worry, I'm not getting into the details of that. So, this time around, I'm not going to tell you the title of the story in the beginning because then it will be a giveaway for what the story is all about. So, this time the title is Towards the End. So, she is back. Our little curious genie is back. So, you all know, I'm sure by this time you all know that she is very fond of adventures. She is absolutely always looking for planning escapades just for fun. Even this time, something of that sort has happened. An adventure has happened. So, you want to know? Are you curious too? Well, let's dive straight into the story that unfolded this time around. It was sometime after midnight. Jeannie just couldn't sleep. She was uncomfortably tossing and turning in her bunk bed that she shared with her friend Charu. Charu, by the way, was fast asleep. She was even snoring a little. Yeah, I know. Little kids can snore too sometimes. So Cheeni jumped. So she on a bunk bed she used to sleep on the top bunk and the lower bunk was for Charu. So Cheeni jumped from her bunk bed and looked at her friend with a little, jealousy as she was sleeping so comfortably and in such a, peaceful manner. Anyways, Jeannie just she tiptoed out of the room, and she didn't dare to actually turn the light on in the passage, as people would have come to know that she is trying to escape. Not exactly escape, but just loitering around in the middle of the night. And anyways, it was a full moon night, so the entire passage was bathed. The passage had windows on the top also. It was a very old building. I'll go about, talk about the structure of the building where Jeannie lived in some other story, not this time. But yes, the passage had windows on the ceiling, and that is the reason the entire passage was bathed in milky white light of the full moon. It was a beautiful night. So Jeannie just tiptoed out of the passage that led to the back door, and she opened the back door and closed it from the outside. And from the backyard, she went into the wilderness. Now, you must be surprised because I'm sure you all remember that Cheeni lives in Mumbai. So, where would you find wilderness in the bustling metropolis of Mumbai? Well, you can. So, the orphanage that Jeannie lived in was very near to the RA forest area. So, it was a very peaceful, quiet, serene surroundings for children to live in, actually, to live in peace, live a little away from pollution, from noise, from honking, and everything. So, it was a good place to live, to play, to learn, and just enjoy. So, the backyard of the orphanage housed a little garden, and it also had play area for kids. And from there, there was a back door, a back gate actually, which was always locked. But in the morning today, there was some construction going on in one of the buildings, and somehow some people forgot to lock the door, so it was unlocked. And it was a good thing for Cheeni that she didn't have to climb, so she just opened the gate and it just went into the forest area. So Cheeni started walking into a, a path that led somewhere deep into the forest. Well, before I go into the story, for kids who are listening to this story, and I hope kids are also listening. So, kids, please do not ever, like never ever, go out unsupervised. You should always go out when you have company of your parents, your grandparents, your teachers, or maybe your elder siblings, but never go out all by yourself. I know Jeannie is doing that. She is a little brave girl. She's also lived on the streets, if you remember, but just a warning that please don't go out. It's not good, okay? Anyway, so Jeannie was walking on a path. I'm sure you all know, there are these paths in the jungle which are walked by people or by animals some millions of times. They're just kind of made into in like they just look so made up, but they've been used for a very long time. They've always been used. So she also started walking on that path, and tonight she was just mindlessly walking. She wasn't exactly looking for something tonight. She was just a little annoyed because she couldn't do her homework properly, and she was scolded a little by her teacher, so she was a little upset with that, and sleep has also eluded tonight. So she wasn't looking for anything. She just kept on walking and enjoyed the moonlit night. And suddenly, out of nowhere, there was this sound called excuse me. So Jeannie just stopped in her path and she looked around. She looked around everywhere. There was no one. She just thought that maybe, uh, it's her mind doing these tricks. So she started walking again, and then again there was this noise. Excuse me, can you listen to me? And this time again, Jeannie turned around and she just was perplexed. There was no one around. There was not a soul in sight. So she was really confused and a little scared this time because she was like, "Oh my God, is this another ghost that has come for me?" But she couldn't even feel anything. There was nothing. So she kept on walking again, and then again, that same voice, "Please, excuse me, can't you listen to me?" And then Jeannie just stopped and she gathered up every inch of courage that she had in her, and she was like, "Okay, so if you're a ghost, you can't harm me and you should not harm me, and I already have one ghost friend. I'm not looking for more ghost friends. So if you're a ghost, just please go away and find someone else." And the voice again replied, "I'm not a ghost. Oh, please, I'm not a ghost. So can't you see me?" Jeannie was like, "No, I can't see. Where are you?" And then suddenly, out of nowhere, a book just came in front of Jeannie. A big binder book, the books that are called tome, those scholarly ones, the books that are, heavy looking and in a hardback cover with it was velvet, it was in a velvet case kind of a thing, and it just popped right in front of Jeannie. And this was something extremely unusual. This has never happened to her, or for that matter, she just thought this has never happened to anyone. She just lost her balance and she just fell on her face right in front of that book. And the book was like, "Oh my God, you are so messy. How did you fall and why did you fall? I told you I'm not a ghost. You shouldn't be scared of me." Haven't you heard of books that talk? Jeannie just was a little perplexed with her fall. She was also a little embarrassed with her fall. So she just stood up. She dusted the mud off her dress and her face and her hair and everything. And she took a few steps back and she was like, "No, I have never heard of a talking book. I have never heard anyone talk about a talking book. So this is unusual. How can you talk?" And then before the book could actually reply, Jeannie was like, "Is this a dream?" And she was like, "Don't answer. It's actually a rhetorical question. I'm sure it's a dream." And then she pinched herself in the arms really hard. And a scream just came out of her mouth because she had pinched herself so hard. And then she had closed her eyes, so she opened her eyes again and she looked around just to find Jaru snoring, just to find herself on her bunk bed. But no, she was still in the forest, standing on the path, and a book was just right in front of her, talking. The book said, "Are you done with your antiques? You just didn't believe me. You thought I was a ghost. And then when I started talking, you had a really embarrassing fall. And now you just pinched yourself so hard just thinking it was a dream. Why can't you accept that a book can talk? I'm talking right in front of you." And she was like, "Oh my God, this is so unusual. How can you talk?" So the book was like, it's a long story. Jeannie just sat down in the path and she was like, well, I can't sleep, so I can use your story actually. Maybe your story is so boring that I'll fall asleep. And the book was a little offended. He was like, it was like, um, no, my story is actually very interesting, and I'm certain you will not fall asleep. So, are you all ears? Cheenie was like, yeah, I'm all ears. So, tell me, what's your story? How can you talk? How can a book talk? So the book was like, well, it happened almost 100 years ago. And Jeannie was like, oh my god, are you that old? The book was like, oh well, I'm even older than that. So but the thing is, you can't interrupt me. Jeannie was like, well, okay, so finish your story, then I'll interrupt you. So the book was like, it was almost 100 years ago, and it happened in England. So the book said, I belong to a lady who come from a long lineage of people who believed in magic. But magic they used only for the purposes of learning, to unfold mysteries. Magic they didn't learn to disrupt people's life, or to cause them harm or anything. They just loved the art of magic, and they they just lived by it. So I used to belong to a lady who come from this illustrious lineage of people who um, taught magic, who learned magic, who used to do magic, and they just worshipped that art. She did too. So one day she actually thought that she could use a spell, like she will make a spell that would make all the books talk. And her idea was that sometimes when you are reading books, your hand gets tired, your neck starts paining, you're aching. So she just had this idea. And can you imagine, she had this ingenious idea almost 100 years back, before the advent of all the technology that you kids use today. So back in the day, she had this idea too, that why can't I make a spell which would make the books talk, and how interesting that would be. So she made a spell, and she lived in a huge bungalow. So on the first floor of that bungalow was a big library. She had 4 rooms full of books. So she used that spell in one of the rooms on all the books, and it was going to take 24 hours for that spell to work. When she came back the next day and she said hello to all the books, thinking that all the books would reply to her, because the spells that the lady made always worked. But unfortunately, this time it didn't work. Well, it didn't work on everyone. On all the books, it just worked on me. So when she entered the room and said hello, expecting a cheerful hello from hundreds and thousands of books, there came this very feeble hello to her from me. It's like, hello, hello. And that started my friendship with that lady. But there was some flaw in the spell, because not everyone could talk to me and not everyone could listen to me. So after after that lady passed away, I came into a lot of hands, from this place to that place, from England to so many countries that I have been to. Finally I landed in India a few years back, and I was abandoned here. I was just thrown away with some stuff that people who had me, they just threw away stuff, they just gave away stuff. I was in that box, and ever since then, I have been trying to find people who would listen to me, people I could talk to. I have so many stories to say, and for crying out loud, I'm a book. I already have so many stories in me, and all the stories I've gathered over this span of 100 years. So, well, I that completes my monologue. So Cheeni was really enthralled. She said that, my God, I, this is very unusual. Can I address you as the book? He was like, it was like, yeah, I'm an inordinate object. You can just call me book, the book, bookie. You can call me a bookie. She was like, no, no. That's not what I'm gonna call. It's not exactly a right word. So I'll just call you the book. So the book was like, okay, I find it very important and endearing you calling me the book. So Cheeni was like, I really love to read, and I have just started reading. I've just started to learn to read and write, and you know, you're just a godsend to me. You can tell me so many stories. You can teach me also. So would you mind if I take you with me? And the book was like, oh my god, oh my god, it's just started sobbing like I this is such an emotional moment for me. I have been waiting for someone to actually just take me and use me for what I'm meant to be used for. I'm a talking book and I can tell you stories. I can I can teach you things and I can make you learn, and I can just make your life so happy with all the knowledge that I have with me. So yes, you have my consent to take me with you. And Jeannie just said that, but I'll hide during the day. I'm going to hide you in my bag, and at night, I'm going to take you out and we'll talk. And you'll teach me things. You promise that, okay? And the book was like, I do. It's very strange. 100 years back, I was in a women's library in England, somewhere in England, and 100 years after that, I'm here, and I'm just so delighted. I'm just so delighted that my quest to look for someone who would listen to my stories has ended. So thank you. And so Cheeni just took the book and she came back to the orphanage and she hid her book in her bag. And from that night on, every night, instead of looking for adventures, a lot of nights she would just take the book, go into the back garden and talk and listen to the stories, enthralling stories that the book had. So, I really hope you like this story of mine. If you do, please do give me a thumbs up and share with your friends and family and everyone you know who would love stories. And by the way, the title of the story is Cheeni and the Talking Book. So please like my stories, and I promise you I won't delay like this. Thank you so much.